been too long since I filmed a review, and I worried too much about like having too much. This doesn't need to be a 30-minute review, but series review time for Chaos Walking by Patrick Ness, which is a YA series that I read recently, and it was pretty damn good. And I think a lot of you would like. I will say it's one of the trilogies is kind of like, for book 1 is kind of a thing, and then 2 and 3 are kind of similar, but we'll get into it. Okay, so what is this about? I have to say, I'm gonna start talking largely about this book, The Knife of Never Letting Go, and then I'm gonna pivot and talk about the next two, because the next two are a lot more similar to each other. They're all pretty distinct. Like they all have like, it's a trilogy where it's not one big story. It's like recognizably 3 books, even though there's no time skip between them. Each book takes place like the second after the previous book ends. This is a sci-fi series, even though it's not really a sci-fi title, and is technically sold under YA, and I'm going to talk about why and whether if you should care. So, Knife of Never Letting Go, it takes place on a colony. It's a human character. It follows one perspective, follows the perspective of Todd, who is barely literate, and as thus describes things with misspelling, and I've said this in like my Goodreads review, and I mentioned it in my wrap-up. I normally hate this. I'm just like, just spell things normally, but that's because it normally makes it annoying to read. I think Patrick Ness does a very good job of still making it like clearly comprehensible what it's trying to say. You always know what he's trying to say. It more just I think helps with like dialogue and like accent almost, and makes me hear the voices better. I don't know. The point of reading is to look at squiggles and vividly hallucinate, and makes me hallucinate slightly more vividly, which I think is a good thing. And this, the main difference between this, so it takes place, they're a human colony on a different world. This isn't about the colonization process. The previous generation colonized the world. Todd is younger. Todd is like 14. Although I think he's 14 by this age time, and is actually like 16 or something, but it's not important. He's in his teens. And he wasn't here when the planet was colonized. So he isn't familiar with how things are on Earth. And one thing about this planet is everyone, well, I should say, all the people, there was like a war. There's an alien species who lived there already named the Speckle. And basically, it resulted in all the people there, their thoughts happen out loud. And all the animals as well. So you can hear the thoughts of like all the sentient creatures as you walk around. Which, since humans are humans, humans, tend to have pretty weird thoughts that we then filter and, don't act on. But it's like, all these are out in the open, and, this caused some questionable things for society, and caused a lot of problems. And also, the place there's no women. It's all guys, and he's just like, yep, this disease, it killed all the women, and now all the guys' thoughts are visible. And these are there's a lot. I'm not going to say them all, but very early, you get a lot of really interesting world building hooks. Like, I wonder what's going on with that. And very, very early on, and I think delivered very naturally. I think this book did a really good job of delivering its world building naturally. I almost compared, this is a terrible comparison, but in terms of like some things they do good, I was like, book 1 is like YA Gene Wolfe, where it's like you have a setting that's totally different than than what you'd expect, and the person isn't going to like go out of their way to explain them, and you just figure it out based on what they're saying, because it does that really well. And then this is like YA Dune, because don't trust leaders. But this book 1 is nearly, it's a YA book, so it's very fast-paced. There's not a lot of slow burn, as far as I know. I am not an authority on the YA genre. I haven't read much YA in a while. And YA isn't a genre. It's a marketing category. I will say, the reason I think this book 1 gets shelved in YA is because this place, Prentice Town, that that is the little town on this planet that they live in. It has, like, you become a man when you turn 14 or whatever, and he's like 13 and 10 months, so he's worried. He's like, I have to become a man. So that's like classic YA theme of going into adulthood. That's, I think, why it's YA, I guess. But it does not pull punches. It's pretty harsh. And this book is a lot faster paced. This book's antagonist is it's a lot more running away and trying not to be murdered. While there's a lot more like interaction with the antagonists in books 2 and 3, and a lot more like direct conversations with the people who are the antagonists. This one is more like run for your life, and I think, like, this one, it's by far my favorite, and then book 2 is by far my least favorite, and then Monsters of Men is, like, kind of in the middle. I thought Todd was a really well-done character, and I thought there were some really good side characters as well. I do think the biggest pro is, like, the hook and the pacing and the world-building mystery. I think also the way Patrick Ness pulls off, like, the misspelling and the character voice while not being annoying. And then books 2 and 3 have more that, like, annoy me. Book 1 had very little that annoyed me, and I basically liked almost everything about it. Book 2 and 3 does have some elements of miscommunication. It kind of expands to 2 main characters. We'll actually talk about each book individually. Book 2 has got almost some, not really Dune vibes. It's it's got a character who's referred to as the Ask and the Answer, and it's really, book 2 kind of has 2 antagonists who are both trying to, like, convince the main character that the other person's really, ignore that happened, they're both trying to convince, like, the main characters, this other person's really bad, and you should, like, listen to us, and they both kind of suck, and I think it does a really good job of, showing, like, having the antagonist, like, push this false dichotomy, like, you have to push one or the other, and it sounds kind of nihilistic, like, but the point isn't that everyone is terrible, the point is just that these 2 people are terrible. And it's got some really interesting stuff with how the people interact with the aliens, and then the aliens are, again, going to be more important for the last book, and I can't really talk about much for the last book, but I'll say the 2 books after book 1 have a lot more, like, interaction and conversations with people who would be part of the antagonists. Book 1 had an antagonist who during book 1 is just, like, the main appeal. He's like a love to hate antagonist. He's not an antagonist who it's like, wow, like, I'm really interested to talk about, like, this person's psychological depth. Book 1, like, has an antagonist who, when you see in book 1, you're just like, I want this man to be stabbed 77 times. It also, I think it has some, like, really beautiful moments, and some moments where I absolutely was just, like, fist pumping. Also, just things, man, like, Patrick Ness does not pull punches. Things go horribly wrong in all 3 novels, pretty consistently, and the man's really mean. He does have some, like, writing style quirks. Like, in action scenes, he goes to, like, these, like, 1 or 2 sentence like, word sentences that I think some people could find annoying. Like, if something bad happened, it'll be like, and, like, let's try and come up with this on the spot. Like, and then I looked, and I saw it, and he started moving towards me, and he raised his arm, and blah, 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 blah. And I could see that getting annoying, but I just didn't find it that annoying. I want to just kind of do a quick itch review. I will say, as a criticism for books 2 and 3, and something that I could see people getting annoyed, the 2 main characters, their relationship, sometimes I'm just like, can you bloody trust each other a little bit more? And there definitely is some miscommunication, which I did find frustrating. It's just not, like, It absolutely just became, like, they're multi-POV. It became a thing where I just started rolling my eyes, where it's like, something bad would happen, and you'd be in one point of view, and they'd, like, yell the other person's name, and you'd switch the other point of view, and it'd start with, like, and it's like, okay, we get it. Like, no, you're worried about the other person dying. It's fine. And that definitely slightly annoyed me. But it's a really quirky series. So I could see, like, but you bouncing off it. If you don't like the writing style, or you don't like some pages look like, this is the only page that looks like this. But, there's a page that looks like this, because it's internal thoughts. That's right. This book has Comic Sans, because, like, there's sometimes, there's horses, and they have internal thoughts. And the various animals have, like, a different font. I actually got emotion, like, some of the animals were good characters. Had some really good side characters. Like, this is definitely one where, I felt strong emotion towards the characters. Like, the people I hated, I didn't moderately dislike. I really hated them. The people I was cheering for, I wasn't like, oh, yeah, they're pretty good. I was like, this dude's the MVP. So, yeah, I would give it a try. I wouldn't recommend buying the entire trilogy, because it is, like, I think some aspects are very quirky about the writing style. But I think if you like the writing style, it's just really well done. I'm really impressed. And there were some ballsy choices that I was really impressed by, that I could see not landing. But I think one thing that no one could say, like, if anyone criticized the series and was like, oh, they just play it safe, I would just be like, did you read it? Like, no offense, but, like, what? It makes some really bold choices, and it's probably my favorite YA series ever. After this, I thought it was going to enter, like, my top 5 favorite trilogies, because this is one of my favorite first books in a trilogy. The only first books in a trilogy I like more are, like, Robin Hobb trilogies. That's, like, it. Because I like more than The Final Empire, more than Jade City, more than, The Forgetting Moon. A Little Hatred would be pretty close. More than The Blade itself. More than Time of Blood. More than The Summer Tree. So, at first I was like, holy crap, is this going to be my favorite non-Hobb trilogy? And then I didn't like book 2 as much. Largely because I found, just some aspects of, like, the main relationship a bit annoying. But it was still, like, even when I was annoyed by things in book 2, I still was like, I really respect what you're going for here. And then I still did really like elements of it. And then book 3 was very strong. It had some annoying elements, but there was so much good in that book. So anyway, that's Chaos Walking. Hey, I can kind of review a trilogy in less than 30 minutes. I'm very proud of myself. I'd totally recommend checking out book 1 if you want something really fast-paced that isn't going to pull any punches. You're going to have to deal with things being deliberately spelt wrong. You want some cool sci-fi world building that may have some quirks that you might love and you might hate, then it's definitely worth checking out. Let me know if you've read it. I know a lot of you didn't. I'm really late on this hype train. I only read this because I was like a exchange with Faber, who I got to read the Sarantine Mosaic, which was huge success. And this was also a huge success. All these other TBR swaps have gone well. It's gone well for the people who read what I wanted them to. It hasn't gone as well for me. But this one went well for both of us. Still went better for the other person, but that's okay. That's okay, because this was still pretty excellent. So yeah, let me know. Was this on your radar? Did you actually read it when it was on the hype train and not 10 years late to it? Have you read other stuff by Patrick Ness? I'll probably check out more. And did you notice that I need a haircut and that my hair is completely insane right now? Have a nice day, everyone.